Good evening, folks, and welcome to another session from the Old Wise Asylum. Oh, interesting week, I have to say. Major deflection gig going on, and I'll tell you what, you look at all the fors and the against, and it's pretty clear that people that don't believe that they've fixed the left and right, they've fixed the left and right. I mean, it's just so quite ridiculous, to be honest. But so we're going to analyse it, but without looking at it. We're not going to watch it, because I'm pretty sure you all watched it. But there's just a couple of points that I'd like to make clear, which if you followed the face ache, you're probably aware of them anyway. But the main theme of tonight is deflection, the deflection method, because whereas everybody's focused to this interview between Zelensky, Trump and Vance, and they're focused to the theme of the actual interview, it's actually a major deflection, but to satisfy them that are with Trump and them that are against Trump. And it's not just playing out in America, it's playing out across Europe, it's playing out here. And it's, you know, it's sad to see, but then this is the way it goes. And of course the Wise Asylum's here to try and help you see beyond it. So it's an interesting gig, but of course that's just the sort of the premise for what it is we're going to discuss and what I'm going to show again tonight. It's just to embed it into people's minds the importance of coming to terms with the difference between man and person, and the various differentiations of person. Specifically, the fact that occupation is in play here, the fact that the IRS in the United States is the administrator for all the bankrupt or governments in administration, which is probably a better term, because there's bankruptcy but then there's administration. It's one before the other, but then if you go bankrupt you're also under administration. But the Land Act is over as of January this year. Now everything is coming under the UCC. It did before, but because UK had its own, or England had its own, and that didn't end until the Land and Property Act ended from 1925, they still could operate their own sort of platform, if you will. But now that's pretty much done. You can see now that this new regime in the United States is moving to shift and change the IRS. 15,000 have been sacked. They want to audit the IRS. There's lots and lots of things going on around the IRS, which makes me wonder, are they going to make it easier, or are they actually going to prevent you out there from accessing your estate? So that again is got to be, we have to wait to see as to exactly what that means. But of course, this kind of stuff is for consumption by the Americans. So on the one hand, you've got Trump, you've got this new regime pumping out everything Americans want to hear, which is fine. And I've said this before. The majority of rhetoric coming out from Trump is acceptable. It's wishable. It's what people want. It's sensible rhetoric. But is it only rhetoric? I mean, in most cases, it is, apart from the parts of it which give them more and more power, a bit like Adolf Hitler did. You listen to his speeches now being interpreted into English, and you can pretty much see why everybody swooned at his feet. He was speaking everything that the Germans wanted to hear, in the same way that Trump is giving you, if you're an American, and not just American, the free world, he's speaking everything that the free world wants to hear in order the free world gets a chance to keep itself free. However, and it's a big however, and that's what we're going to look at after we just have a quick look at this debate. This is all deflecting. It's keeping the Americans content to keep on playing and seeing this in the left-right paradigm. Alex Jones is enforcing that. All the people affiliated to Alex Jones are keeping the Americans and anybody else that's watching fixed to this left-right paradigm like it matters. But it's what's going on in the background that's the real power moves, the real game, as it were. And that is just a sideshow, just to keep people from seeing what it is. You know, we need to start to see, to realise exactly what's going on. Now, if you've followed these live streams for the last 4 years, you've got a good grip on the sort of agendas that are hidden or just out of sight, the very agendas that these front people, these puppets, are there to deflect you from seeing. You know, they want to keep you fixed into the domestic stuff, the nonsense, the left-right paradigm, and because it works, most people are still in that. But the real guts of the game is in relation to the fact that this new trust that they're setting up is there for one reason only, and that is to remove your ancestral estates into this new trust, basically decapitating you of any rights and any freedoms, because by consent you will have handed over your entire estate into this trust. That's the main game when it comes to how they're going to enslave people. But then if you take again, you've got Trump again saying what everybody wants to hear. We don't want the World Health Organization. We don't want the ICC. We don't want the United Nations, etc., etc. Well, this is, to Americans and to anybody else, you'll be saying, well, we don't want to be part of that neither, because now we can see it for what it is, especially after the last 5 years. But the plan in relation to this Noahide system is to get rid of the United Nations and all the current international bodies, in many cases that protect us, like Geneva Convention, etc., etc. It's to remove those and install something new to take it over. And this is where the Noahide system comes into play, because that's just the law. Now, I've watched some stuff this week, and perhaps a bit more feet on the ground in relation to just how many sub-laws there actually are to this 7-law system called the Noahide. And basically what it would appear to be is there are 100 sub-laws that are just behind the 7 Noahide laws, as it were. Now, I've also said before that the first 6, they're not outside the 10 Commandments in that sense. So if you're a biblical adherent, then the first 6 are not really going to trouble you in any way, shape or form. However, it's the 7th that is the kicker, because it's the 7th that's basically stating that in order to enhance or give power to those 6 laws, it's going to need a new legal system or a new system of law, which we could say is the legal system, which has been encroaching on all our nations for quite a number of years, centuries even. There is the problem. But then in the 6 is idolatry. And again, whereas people are just referencing it in relation to the biblical 10 laws of Moses, because, look, those that follow the Torah, that we know today as Jews, they just follow the 5 books of Moses. That's what the Torah is. Now, these pretend Jews do not follow the Torah. They subvert the Torah by studying and bringing into form the Talmud, the Midrash, the Zohar. And what they've done over the centuries is formulate their system and amalgamated it with the Torah to make people believe and think that they're the same. They're not. The Torah, which is, as we understand, Judaism, is just those that adhere to the 5 books of Moses, and therefore the 10 Commandments. This other system is a fantasy. You know, it's been pulled out of the scriptwriters from Fantasy Island in its entirety. And specifically one interview we're going to look at tonight. I want you to just step back and listen to what he's saying, this chap. I just want you to listen to what he's saying, and just, instead of just listening to it like you would listen to anything, just actually absorb everything he's saying and then reckon with the sanity of it, the intelligence of it, the spiritual essence of it, because that is where it shows you what you're dealing with. And it has absolutely no bearing or relevance to the spirituality found within the biblical script. None whatsoever. So I'll just forearm you for that. You need to really just sit back when we get to that and just absorb what's being said. Because it's, you know, it's important that we do this kind of thing with this, instead of just listening to it thinking, oh. You've got to really feel what's being said, you know, to get a grip of what it is these people are about. So, in essence then, if we're looking at what Trump's, this interview, I'll say we're not going to show it because I'm sure you've all seen it, but first and foremost, all 3 of these people in that room, in that interview, the Oval Office, operate for the same puppet masters, okay? And I'm going to show you that. So, whereas we are supposed to believe it's one side against another, a new regime against an old regime. It's nonsense, because the simple reason Trump was in for 4 years, from 2016 to 2020, and he did nothing that he's claiming he wants to be doing now to create peace. What this is for the American massive is to try and put Trump on this pedestal that he's become elected on, which is he wants to be the peacemaker. He wants to be the peacemaker, but he's done nothing to support that when he had his 4 years before. In fact, if anything, he launched the greatest war against the human population in his term with Operation Warp Speed. There has been no other single one attack in one time, we're not talking about incremental stuff, but there hasn't been such a huge attack of war against global humanity as was let loose in 2020. And that has to be reckoned with, people. So we haven't to just consider war being guns and bullets and soldiers and airplanes and ships. Warfare is big, and you've got it flying over your head every day with these trails. It's another war, a method of war. And these are the things that none of these people talk about, because of course that's what they're deflecting from. They want your focus to what they know you see war as, which is soldiers, guns, bullets, bombs, blood. Yeah? That's what they want you to remain fixed to when the word war comes up. Okay? But the war is a quiet war, remember. The old CIA document, quiet... I don't know what it's called now, but we've presented it on here. It's a quiet war in that it's going on, but that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about this other one. Okay. Now they are going to use this mechanical warfare in an agenda, and my worries is that they want to remove all our troops from our own nations, especially in European terms, because you can see clearly now that Trump and Putin are basically removing Ukraine from any command of any powers in Europe. And remember, the Ukraine is and was the breadbasket of Europe, along with the Netherlands. But we know what problems the Netherlands has been having in relation to closing down farming. And I think this gets missed by a lot of people, that Ukraine in and of itself, okay, it was a buffer, and an agreed buffer between NATO and the Warsaw Pact, that they would keep that area free from weapons. And of course it was the breadbasket, not just for Europe, but also for Russia. But now that's being removed, if you look at the bigger picture, from any command of any European force. And that's been created by the leaders of the European Union. This is why they've created the European Union. Because that in and of itself takes power away from European nations and puts it in the hands of this supranational organisation, tied to the United Nations, ultimately tied to the bankers. So when you look at it in this way, then you're looking at the quiet war, the war they don't talk about, the way that they're taking over nations' power, the populations, the assets and their land. That's the quiet war. Because people are still fixed to a mechanical war, and that's the only war people see. So again, back to this Oval Office theatre. For the consumption of the Americans, it's dirtables to the left and the right. i.e., I'm the peacemaker, you're a bad boy, Zelensky. Now, don't get me wrong, they're all in it together. But it did look to me a little like it were scripted to a point, but Zelensky hadn't really been given the script. Because he were acting ad hoc in that session, it appeared to me. And in all accounts, and again, I'm saying I know that this is just a scam, it's all theatre. Nobody's winning in this war in the Ukraine. apart from the money launderers, because we've been sending all the money and keeping it going as an ability and a means to move our troops out into Europe and out of off our land. So I'm not fooled in any way, shape or form. But if we're to dissect the actual gig, I think what got missed by a lot of people was the fact that first, you've got two very so-called powerful puppets blaming the recipient of presents. Okay? So for instance, it's like, take that into a family line. You've got divorced and you feel that dad is gaining undue influence over the offspring because he's got more money than mum, and he's buying his children because he's giving them massive presents. Now, you don't attack your child, do you, for receiving a present off his dad? No, you quietly go and attack the dad. Yet, in this gig, you've got two powerful puppets attacking the recipient of prezzies from the United States, i.e. Biden, UK, etc., etc. So, from that perspective, in and of itself, it's a little bit obscure. Alright, it's a little bit obscure. Then you've got a chap who's acting as the president of a country at war, with a superpower, by the way. But then the next real fallacy of that theatre was the fact that before Zelensky got attacked and they started shouting at him like they were infants, Vance were talking about peace, and Zelensky made it clear that they'd actually signed off a peace deal at the beginning, which was broken by Putin. But then he also explained how twice he was ready to sign a peace deal with Putin, and at both times blocked. First time from an American ambassador and the second time by Boris Johnson. Now, he didn't mention names. So he was basically answering the questions that Vance were putting there to try and get a negative reaction. However, Zelensky was quite correct in explaining that actually I've been there on peace talks twice, ready to sign. You lots fucked it up and Boris Johnson screwed it up. And from that then basically bear in mind that just previous to that, Vance have been giving it the big, oh, we're all for free speech. We believe Americans have to be able to speak what they want, whether we like it or not. And we all feel like that because that's what the West is based on, freedom of speech. This is how you keep freedom going. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to censor so much. The fact that they censor so much is so that they can stop freedom. That is the basis of it. So just before that little incident, you've got Vance giving up the big, we are all about free speech, blah, 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 peacemakers, this, that, and the other. And then after Zelensky had answered his questions, and then we're breaking off pretty quickly because they didn't like his answers, because basically, what Zelensky, in his right to free speech, as a president of a nation at war with a superpower, answered the question. And Vance then forgot the free speech stuff. It was basically, how dare you bring into the public arena, because we've been keeping it from the Americans, so they didn't know this, what really happened. Now, when you look at it like that, you can see how pathetic these people are. And the fact that they've been raised to the top of the fucking tree by you, or Americans, that's frightening. And it's frightening because it's showing the capacity of the minion. You know, they say you get the leaders you deserve. Well, it was the most infantile exchange that I've seen since I was at primary school. The debates at high school that we used to have. I know they don't do it anymore. But we used to do a lot of debating at school in English, and then we'd all sit in and watch these debates. Even those debates were way more intelligent than this theatre that we've just been forced to watch. And then, of course, Trump comes in with all this nonsense. It's just, and you get, now you can see out there the intelligent people are picking this up. But then the majority of banter about it is left or right. You know what I mean? So I've seen stuff saying a real man facing up to a dictator. Well, who put that dictator in? Who set it up in first place? Well, the Democrats did. But the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. So when you look at the statistics in the US, AIPAC. Now, AIPAC is the lobby of Israel in the United States, okay, from which you then get the B'nai B'rith and the ADL, okay, as pit bulls to protect the AIPAC's power. Now, in the US government right now, the Republicans offering up Republican candidates and people in power, 199 of those are controlled by AIPAC. Okay? And in the Democrats, it's 130 that are known to be completely controlled by AIPAC. That's Israel. Now, when you buffet that up against the percentage of other donors to the other Republicans and Democrats, what you find there is that a big percentage of those other donors are also, by subsidy to AIPAC, being funded by branches of AIPAC. So that's both parties, 100% and completely controlled by the same. You get a sneak preview of that when you look at Robert Mercer, the guy who pulled Trump's flailing first attempt at power back in 2015 to 16. When it was flailing, Robert Mercer came in. The data they collected through the social media data dump collections gave him the buzzwords, make America great again, because those were the terms that Americans were speaking on social media. So he rescues Trump's flailing election campaign, and away it went. Now, when you look at who Robert Mercer was funding, he was funding Obama, he was funding them all, both sides, all of them. But the powers, when they were in government, he was funding the same. So you can see that the Democrats and the Republicans, whilst they could presenting themselves as two sides of the same coin, flipped by the banker, are in fact pushing the same scripts to keep that division going, ultimately from one beneficiary. And that's important for Americans to reckon with. But more importantly, that theatre shows you clearly what a disgrace, what a mess we're in, because these monkeys have been raised to the top of the tree, and this monkey business, as low grade and infantile as it is enough to satisfy the majority of people worldwide. Now that's a sad indictment on the people. You get the government you deserve. An old adage, and very, very true. So that's all we need to talk about on relating to that theatre. It was so nonsensical. And then in the aftermath, you've got Keir Starmer ever pushing us away from connection with America. You know, you've got this nonsense. You see, you can see that it's Europe that's been screwed over here. And it's been screwed over because of the European Union. Whereas Europe were made up of all these different nations that all had their own national identities, the national needs, that prevented the European landmass becoming a United States. And therefore, always kept the monsters at bay to a degree. So this is where your First and your Second World Wars come in. And then what Clinton did over the Crimea, which was a Third Reich agenda, by the way. So you can see all these three wars have been, in the main, have been about subverting Europe. And now you can see this Putin-Trump game basically sidelining Europe completely. Sidelining Europe completely. Usually the Brits are there, we have the force, we have the might, we have the capacity to fight war. Well, that's been depleted. And that's been being depleted since the Second World War. So we no longer have the power and the might that we once had, because it were annihilated in the Second World War, basically, because everything had been shifted over to the United States after the First World War treaties. So you can see that this whole game is basically about shafting Europe so that the Horde can come in now. The Venetians have served the purpose. They've subverted Europe through the Jesuits, through the crypto-Jewish idea, through Freemasonry, through the Reformation, through the Civil Wars, the French Revolution. They've done their bit now to subvert Europe without demolishing its wealth, its assets, because the Horde wants to come in and take it. We are now at that point. And we're at that point because they've subverted the United States of America. Had it not been so, they wouldn't be able to do this, because while the United States was the power, and while the United States was independent of this Venetian Holy See empire, you can see as APAC, that protected the free world, that protected Europe, it protected Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and any other nation that wanted to take on what was and is the English law system. So that's the secret hidden war, the quiet war, while everybody's fixed to the diversion, as it were. Now, okay, so let's have a little look. Well, just before we kick, I'll just remind you of this start image, because I only picked this up earlier, but this is so the way of war. It has always been so. Images speak 1,000 words. On the chessboard, everybody's slaughtered. At the banqueting table are the monarchs, or those that control the monarchs, which we know to be the Holy See families, do we not? I mean, we've explored them. We've had a good look at them. I know it goes a lot deeper than that, but we've got an idea. We can see now that when we look at our monarchy here, there's not even a king, because he's not wearing a crown, yet they keep calling him a king, because they're acclaiming him a king. And while they're acclaiming and everybody else follows on, he is an acclaimed king. You could be acclaimed Donald Duck if ye so chose and you went along with it. You cannot get a better picture of what war is really all about. Have we learned nothing? Obviously not. Obviously we haven't. It's that simple. We've learned nothing, have we? So this is where we'll have a look now at. Just before we enter that arena, I just want to. Now, how many years have I told and carped on about the fact that the cabinet here on Blighty is just a puppet machine, and that the cabinet, in fact, is the mover of the will of the banks. We've looked at the banks, qualified intermediaries, all affiliated with the Vatican Bank, okay, the Holy See, which is its own country, all right? And they're going to feign the destruction of Rome, when in fact that system's just going to move to Kazakhstan. But to all the fruit bats, they'll believe that Rome has fallen, because that's part of the script. No, it hasn't. The old Rome has fallen, but it fell a long time ago, because we moved into the hands of these Venetian Byzantine bloodlines, who have been subservient to Genghis Khan's lines since Genghis stopped at Europe. That's why he stopped. They did a deal. Now, this just shows you exactly what I've been telling you about the cabinet. It doesn't matter which government you've got in power. The cabinet that's going to be put in place, and when whoever gets elected, has already been pre-formed, pre-programmed, and they're positioned men and women by the Privy Council, or the Crown, if you will. You don't have to get too fixed on the Privy Council side, but the Privy Council is in fact a very great power in the absence of a king. Now, we had no king under the Queen, and we've no king today. So the Privy Council is still operating on behalf of the absent king. And you've got to see that and keep that in mind. So the Privy Council is actually a supreme authority in relation to administering the will of these bankers, which of course have got us in occupation and have got us at war, which is why there are members that every day in Parliament stands up before Parliament starts and says, are we at war? And the Chair of Parliament has to say, yes. And then business begins under the occupation and war footing, which it's been doing since the War Cabinet was formed just before the First World War. Okay? Keep that in mind. We've gone through all this stuff, and now I know you might have forgot some of this stuff, because we have gone through some data. Now, just, you know, you can't get it any clearer, and this is from a guy that you all hate anyway because of the last 5 years. But here you are, getting it in your lug holes, exactly what I've been telling you about. It doesn't matter which left or right, which party you get in, it's already been controlled because all the people that are going to make up the cabinet have already been pre-selected, pre-programmed, pre-educated, and are put in place. So listen to this. Oh, I can't. Oh, wait a minute. You have to go in here.
Just say.
The cabinet is just a kind of stage theatre, and actually officials in the cabinet office have already decided it all.
I'm Bev Turner, and I hope you're sitting comfortably, because I think Dominic Cummings, the man who was chief advisor to Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, during 2019 to 2020, has just revealed that the deep state is running this country, and that our political system is therefore a complete sham. I think that's what he just said.
The person in the... So if you think of two roles, right? Foreign Secretary in Great Britain and the private secretary in the PM's office responsible for foreign affairs, an official whose name has never been in the newspapers. That person was like 10 times more powerful and important than the Secretary of State was. And I think this is something which people just don't really realise. And it's part of like how the whole system has become fake. So you have fake meritocracy, fake responsibility, and then fake cabinet government. So they all walk up Downing Street, the cameras work, they pose, they smile, ha ha, I'm going into the most powerful meeting, aren't I great? But it's all nonsense. The cabinet is just a kind of stage theatre. And actually officials in the cabinet office have already decided it all. When you sit in Whitehall now, right, in meetings, they are literally scripted. So when the Prime Minister has a meeting with ministers, what happens is that before the Prime Minister has that meeting, officials go into the Prime Minister's study and they give him a folder. And in the folder at the front is a thing called Chairman's Notes. And that's the script, and that's what the Prime Minister reads out. And the conclusions of the meeting are in the Chairman's Notes, drafted before the meeting happens, right? So the Prime Minister says, hello, Secretary of State, blah, 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 and then all these officials sit around the sides on chairs around the edge of the room. And then the MP, the Secretaries of State, all look down at their folders because they've all got their scripts, right? And this is why I use the NPC meme, right? Because then the Prime Minister reads out, well, we're here to discuss blah, blah, then he goes around the room, and then Secretary of State for Justice or the Foreign Secretary reads out his bullet points, and then he reads out their bullet points, and they read out. If anyone goes on the script, you see the officials sort of go, and then look over at the other official on the side of the room and kind of, that means we'll come back to that after the meeting and make sure that that doesn't happen. And then at the end, it was a fascinating, great discussion. Thank you so much for your wonderful, insightful, original contributions. And then he reads out the conclusions which were all drafted in advance. And it sounds like a parody, but it is literally how the British state functions.
This is almost too much for my brain to take in. He just said the quiet bits out loud. Yes, we know that corporate corruption through lobbying has nudged MPs in various directions for years. And yes, we know that the regulatory authorities meant to keep us safe and healthy, such as the MHRA and the JCVR and the WHO, all the irritating acronyms, which seem to want to shrink their massive organisations into a tiny little number of letters, you know, like people who want to hide it because they're up to no good, all that lot. We are aware, you and I, that such conflicts exist. But on the whole, we, well, me anyway, have thus far believed, naively, in the concept of democracy. We spend hours talking about who would make a good MP or a decent cabinet minister, who would be a powerful prime minister. But what if that is all a facade? And what if it happens in countries all across the world? What if it always has? How many actors reading from a script have become world leaders at the behest of a deeper, darker set of forces? Did it start with Ronald Reagan, continue through Tony Blair, no stranger to acting at university, and lead on to, of course, President Zelensky? And are the politicians themselves in on it? Do they know they are there in name only, possessing merely the power to change the toner in the photocopier rather than change the tone of political debate in a way that they, rather than their handlers, would like? This is how Cummings, who genuinely had a close-up view, surmises the arrangement.
And the MPs are happy with that, right? Well, how does the psychology of it work? The officials are happy because they have almost all the real power. The cabinet secretary is now 100 times more powerful than any cabinet minister apart from the PM. And the MPs are happy because this whole system pretends that they're in charge. So both sides are basically happy with the fake version of the government.
To hear this from the horse's mouth beggars belief, and it leads to many more questions than it answers.
Right, so there you go. From the horse's mouth, as it were. You know, you can't... This is how it works, ladies and gentlemen. And I've been telling you this for how long now? You know it. You know I've been papping on about this stuff for such a long time. It's probably bored you stupid. But it needs to be addressed because this is the way the game works. Now, I'll just set us up while I'm on this, just for the next part of it. But I'm going to start to show you now that the diversion, this theatre we've just seen and gone through now in relation to this interview with Zelensky, or rather debate, or admonishment, we might say, like two teachers admonishing a child, which is what a lot of the sorts of piss tech videos that are being created basically presenting it as. But when you look at it from the other side, that they're all equally controlled by the same forces, then you don't fall foul of the, oh my God, how sad, or, yeah, we'll give it to him there because he deserved it. It's just a charade. It's to keep you fixed in the left-right paradigm so that you don't see the real game, the real power moves that these people are carrying out all over the shop. So we'll have a look who's joined us, and then we'll get stuck in. So that's preemptive for where we're at. We just want to look at this, you know, that it's all theatre, and it's to stop you from seeing the real power plays, the plays that are really going to affect you, your offspring, and your grandchildren forever if they gain what it is they're aiming to gain, which is full control of the entire earth and everything that's alive on it, including you. But of course, you're off for the chop one way or another, because as we discussed last week, what they're really about is making sure that they scoop up as many children or your offspring as they can. And just before they do that, they want to make sure they've created the breeding program that gives them the perfect model, which is basically a very confused mixed race child that they can then reprogram, and away they go on a new reset. So that's what we looked at last week. So who's joined us tonight? Benefactor says, hi Sean and the Wise Asylum team. Excited for your presentation tonight. Wishing you all the best. Thanks, Benefactor. And good evening to you. June says, good evening Sean and chat. Evening June. Paul says, good evening Sean and fellow inmates. Evening Paul. Mark Oakford, hello Mark. Long time no see. Evening Sean and all. Good evening to you. Lorraine says, evening Sean and everyone else here. Evening Lorraine. Slipknot says, alright Sean, everyone. Hello Slipknot. I've got some data for you for next time I see you. Obviously I've been unpacking. And I was thinking of doing a live stream this week, going through all this ley line data I collected when I was in that group. But to be quite honest, it'd be quite difficult to actually do that because they're all stories, personal stories about how it's quite long-winded. So what I thought we'd do is next time I meet, you can take them away with you, have a good peruse, but make sure I get them back. And there's plenty in there for you to look at because it pretty much covers so many monuments everywhere across the Blighty in its entirety. So some good data for you there, Slipknot, next time you come up. Lorraine says, very psychedelic. Well, I am psychotropic. From back in the day, of course, so I accept that. I take it you're talking about the intro. I think I might change that shortly. Even I'm getting bored of it, to be honest. Jerry says, happy Sunday, Sean, and all on the white side. Even to you, Jerry. LFX, thumbs up. Lorraine gives it the sheep. Kerry says, love from Ireland, love back to Ireland, Kerry. A distraction from what's going on behind the scenes. Yes, indeed. And we're going to look at that. I'll show you exactly what they're distracting. Exactly what it is you don't want you to see. In a minute. AMG says, evening, Janet, Sean, and all non-mutants. Looking forward to Sean having another rant on the fruit bats. Well, yeah, I might not rant tonight. I was effing and jeffing last week. I noticed when I was watching it back. Oh, good grief. But anyway, there you go. Sometimes it requires a bit of effing and jeffing. Jane, not bloody Janet, says AMG. Okay, so AMG's pissed. Alright, matey. Mew says, hello everyone, hello Mew. AMG says, hi Lorraine, blah, 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 blah. Lex says, evening Sean and Wise Sound crew, evening Lex. Jay says, good day to you, Jay. Nice to see you back up and about and not lurking. How you doing, bud? Mew says, I'm Mark, blah, blah, blah. Let's just try and keep it to points. Jane says, I'll quietly sneak into the back row. I've missed much. Evening Sean, Chatters and AMG. Evening Jane. Jerry says, they've all had the fruit bats waving the Noahide flag for years now. Yeah, and we just didn't know. He's not called the register yet, Jane. No, I haven't. We're all good. Jane must be having a power nap after waking up all chirpy. LFX Hoarder, Torah. Well, interesting. LFX Thora, yeah, well, they call it the Tanakh, actually. We call it the Torah. Just to clarify, I did not wake up with AMG. All right, Jane, we've clarified that. She won't be late again, she says. Silent weapons for Weight Wars, that's the one I think, thanks for that. Jay says, your mind is the biggest weapon. Of course it is, but the biggest problem was getting beyond the family unit. Which, if you read the Bolshevik scripts from way, way back, that's the problem. They have to divide up the family because a family is a solid unit when it's solid. But now, all the women want to be men. All the men think they're black and want to shag everything on planet and show off like that. So we're basically fucked. So they've done that. They've annihilated the family unit thanks to the 60s generation who thought free love were a good idea and let's have babies with all sorts of different people and wreck our family bloodlines. So there we go. It's a done deal. Families are screwed. Women have no intent of nurturing. They want the state to give them the money and they're happy to hand over the kids to the state. Dads don't give a shit either because, well, I don't know why, because drugs, let's be honest, drugs has killed so much. And not just since the 80s, but since the 60s. But it did have a big gap, like from the 70s to 80s, but by the end of the 80s, in they came again for another game, another gig. And here we are today. Yeah, your mind is the biggest weapon, yeah. Jay says, wow, my comment's censored by YouTube. Really? Don't forget we've got 70. So I've had over 50 new subscribers this week. It's shown 3. I don't know how the fuck they're getting away with it. Last week we had over 20. I don't know how they're getting away with it to do this. Are they knocking people off subscription and the people are not noticing? Or have they set some kind of thing up in background where you can still stay subscribed but it's not showing on here, you're not getting any notifications? I don't know. But we've had 15 last 3 days and they've shown 3. Yeah, so I wonder how many people are really watching this gig. You know what I'm saying? So who cares anyway? So they censored you, Jace. Well, that's not good, is it? Well, they still won't let me add anybody else as a mod. So there you go. What did you say? Say it again. Looked like it was staged. Of course it was. I typed what you typed, LFX, without the asymmetrical warfare. Yeah. Oh yeah, they don't want that reminding. I only know because I'm also watching on an anonymous machine. Okay, groovy stuff. Right, so you're getting 77 grade or Unit 85, whatever they're called, tosses over there. Treen, I show to the white side of the little treen, because always get it back to front usually, Jace. Okay. Or mod censored, yeah, it looks that way. AMG says, Jane definitely won't, mate. Jane, are you fibbing? Have you got them long legs of yours wrapped around AMG? Tree says, it was scripted theatre shite, yeah. All media's faked, yeah. Mew says, Tree, did you get your name down for the Sheep Farm gig? If there's any tickets left, there's quite a few people back at what we were discussing last week would like to get some tickets, so I don't know where crack is with that. Snap, blah, 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 blah. Where are we there? LFX says, deep folk news. Well, folk, big G4S Intel unit gig, innit? Dream, Don mentioned he will be sending out emails about the July tickets this week. Lex Van Man, hello Lex Van Man, they were all coked up for that show. Do you think so? You know, you could be right, and they do like the cocaine. And Kennedy likes his meth blue. Have you seen how much he puts in? Good grief. I've been meth bluing it this weekend. So my peas green and blue. The Money Wheel says Jerry. Cap A says LFX. AMG, where's Rizzler this evening? Oh, this is absent, is he without leave? Bob Miranda's cartoon of MAGA is brilliant, says Lorraine. PYM Music says, evening, all evening. Paul, how you doing, mucker? Lorraine says, Keir Starmer sitting cross-legged in the White House because he's got the fanny. Because Jimmy Savile, mind you, Jimmy Savile were up his other fanny, weren't he? What kind of creatures have paid the minions put up at the top of the tree, I do say. My God, it's quite worrying. Right. Only bloke there had his legs crossed. Set back by trauma. Yeah. It's sad, really, when you think about it. But then it's not sad that they actually will perform the game, the circus that they've been abused to do. You know, you can always say get stuff for not doing it, and then they've wasted their entire life wrecking you. But no, these people go on to do it. Now, that's where they, in my opinion, they're open up to ridicule, because we all have the capacity to say no matter what we've gone through. If we haven't healed and we've allowed ourselves to carry on to be programmed and then be useful idiots for these secret society networks, then that's on us. And, you know, no matter what you've suffered as a youngster, it's still on you. You've got to heal. And if you don't heal, then you're going to become a muppet of these people. So Keir Starmer is deserving of the ridicule, because he's happy to screw the living shit out of you, because he got the living shit screwed out of him. Tit for tat. Not a man, is he? He's a human, a monster. Where are we there? Zelensky's just an actor, he is. Secret behind the scenes, stealth war, yes. Absolutely true, they're all actors, yeah. Freedom to speak, breh. Deport. Yep. Well, I've said this before, and I'll stick to it. Yeah, I'll stay on the same track, because you know, the Muslims that have been born here, grown up here, been educated here, they know us. You know, a lot of us are close-knit people. There's only that crap separates us. If they haven't learned anything in their time here, then this game's going to run forward. It's going to move forward. But if they've seen the light a little bit, they know that the mosque's just a bank that extorts them, because they do know. It's Muslims that taught me this. You know what I mean? I'm not just saying it out of the blue. My mates that were Muslims told me exactly what it meant to be a Muslim in this country. And then also told me what it's like to be a Muslim and to go and try and visit Pakistan, which you can't do unless your family is very well embedded with the police over there. You can't go visit Pakistan if you're English, or British as they call them, because they hate the British. They hate the British. And all the Muslims I know that have been over there and come back, one of the things, the first thing they say is, what a snidey bunch of bastards, they're horrible people over there. It's no wonder my parents came over here. So my message to Muslims that were born here, do you want to fetch that shit over here to the place that your parents escaped from to give you a better life? Are you going to allow that to import itself back because you didn't quite get the game of why your mum and dad came here? And remember, they've got rid of so many of them in this last gig. They've got rid of so many old school in all races, all colours here, and across America and across Europe. You've got to keep that in mind, Chuck, folks. It really is down to us. We're here. We're in it. It's up to us. And if you've watched that shit over in America the other day, you certainly can't depend on them people, can you? So, deport. Yeah, all these fruit bats that have come over in the last 10 years, yeah. But, no, I still want to give Muslims born here and that have been here for over 70 years as generational. No, I wouldn't want to deport them. Unless, of course, they want to bring that shit over here. So, you know, an amalgamation, in my opinion, is what's required. Otherwise, Israel's man here, Tommy Robinson, and his hooligan crew are going to become that 5 to 7% that the likes of Musk and the apostles around King Cyrus here, once they knock King Cyrus off, will be enough of a movement to cause the havoc that they require here to pull in the UN troops, because our troops, of course, are going to be fanning around wherever this game that Keir Starmer and the Ukraine gig's playing it. And keep that in mind, people, 5 to 7% it takes to move things. And they're depending on Tommy Robinson and his happy fruit bats to be that 7% on Blighty. Are you stupid? Are you going to allow it? And remember, and I've said this before, a lot of what Tommy Robinson says is correct. I'm not besmirching what he says, but you've got to see what he is. He is a tool of this AIPAC bunch that have got the claws wrapped around the American Republicans and the Democrats. They've always had it here because this is where they installed it after the Civil War. And from here, they've installed it everywhere else. And this socialist system that lady said maybe that's what's gone on everywhere, it's exactly what's gone on everywhere. And if you want to see that picture, seek out Dr. John Coleman, Committee of 300. And he'll tell you he was in MI6 for 20 years. And so, the British Empire, MI6, MI5 and all these connected intelligence operations were installing socialism, Bolshevism everywhere. In his pay, especially across Africa. So that is exactly what Cummins has just presented to you is exactly what the British Empire, or Venetian Empire, which is Holy See Empire, has been spreading across the globe since its conception. Yeah. I think I'll be getting on a boat sooner than I thought. Where are you going to go, Tree? There is nowhere to go. This plan... Now then, Sabrina Wallace, I watched one of her videos. I don't think I got it off the channel originally. I got it off something else. It might have been Twitter, I can't remember. Now, I've said to you before, I know she's onto something, but in a lot of her old stuff, I can't understand everything she's saying because I don't understand the knowledge base that she's got. But as I've watched her slowly over the few years, I've started to understand what she's saying. Now, I put it up on the Faceache this week, and I've got to be frank, she's simplified what she's trying to tell people. She's actually simplified the whole basis of it. And what she's basically saying is this. But I'll add my little bit in because, of course, I can see that there's a race and a religious gig playing out. But basically, this is just what's happening now to cause the unrest. But what she's saying is, coming in straight after that, in this new platform, because everybody's happy to have this facial recognition in your supermarkets, and your town centres and all this shit, that they're building the databases, which is what I've been saying for years, because I saw the data. I've seen the patents for it back in 15 years ago. The Chinese model is collecting your data, biometrics and facial recognition for the drone databases. Because when AI kicks off and takes over everything, it's that's going to be deciding who gets snotted and who doesn't. And as she says, that's what the game's really about. So, but before that, we've got the race and the culture and the colour. Religion gig of unrest first. That's the first gig, point of call. But after that, it's all going to be based on the AI and the drone database, and it'll just go, he needs to be took out, off you go, the drones. So she's right, if you don't get facial augmentation, but like she says again, it doesn't really matter there, they've got your biological map. So unless you're going to start shooting horse blood inside you, you're going to get picked up by this drone database AI system after this frigging madness that they intend to carry out with the hot wars, as it were. Yeah? So an interesting look. If you're not keeping an eye on my face here, have a look. There's some good shit on there sometimes. All aboard the new bus, says Jerry. Where would you go? There's nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. MG says, right near Glaxo HQ Lorraine. Yeah. Yeah, they're not going to buy well, they do anyway. I don't know. Right, let's have a look. Never stopped me going anywhere, and I've been considering moving my face mask when driving home. Yeah, go on, AMG. Yep, right, near, yep. Jane, you woke up again. Oh, yep. Jane says, leave your mask on, AMG. Do you two actually know each other, or are you just being naughty on it? I don't know. I can always apply for a Kenyan passport, only the British still run that. Independent country, just like India. Well, India, is it? It's not independent of Crown, though, is it? Like Alaman. It might be independent of the British government, which is what all these so-called independent nations got when they got it. Like India, they didn't actually get independence from the Crown, they got independence from the British government. The Crown was installing its power base from the secret society networks that they install while a country is under colonisation. So the colonisation, according to the Will District, it's the government running it. It's not, it's the Crown. The Crown are busy installing the secret society networks in the main through the production and transmission of drugs, opium. That creates the subversive networks in each nation because they're all addicts. And that's how the Crown installs its secret network. And then when they've got that in place, it's got full power, they feign an independence for the nation, when really all that's happening is that nation, like India, is no longer subject to the British government. And then history says it's independent. No, bullshit. And that's the same with China. It's the same with any nation that's been colonised, whether that's British, Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, etc. That's how it works, French even, all of them. That's how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. There's no independent nations anywhere. Right, so look, I'll be happy if we can passport, blah, 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 blah. Interesting that the guy jailed in Turkey has now announced the PKK disarm and they've agreed. Oh dear. See if it's much on the moment. They unsubscribe me every week. What, offer you a treat, do they? Oh, right, so they unsubscribe everybody. Well, that's fair, that makes sense. 57, okay, that's good. Methylene blue makes my teeth bright blue. It does for a bit. It makes your piss green. I mean, I took it to the day and I forgot. So when I went to toilet, I'm like, oh, I'm peeing Domestos. But I thought, oh no, it's not Domestos, it's meth blue. Kiddo. Oh dear. AI, yeah, that's the dangerous thing. That's the danger. So loads happened to me, but I would never resort to the way. I'm so glad I was strong enough, learned so much about life because of it. To know such evil to wake up, it does, of course it does. If you come to the light from being in the darkness, you see, spiritually, there's a reason for that. So, and what it is with most of these people is they can't realise that they're actually on a journey to come from the darkness into the light. They just stay in the darkness because obviously they're fruit bats. And that's the difference. That's the difference between those that make it and those that don't. Sabrina is good, says to me, she's brilliant, is that girl. I see if she wants to do an interview, but it won't be on YouTube, it'll probably be just directly for the website. So I am thinking of that, Mute, could be a good idea. Born and banking, blah, blah, exactly. Okay, Rex, super. Thanks, Nouveau. Add Australia to the list here. Right, so let's crack on because... Oh, that's trumpet. Now, I know what I did last week with that noise, why it sounded so shit. It's because I had it on monitor as well. So it sounded terrible. So when I'm doing if I'm doing the music and chatting, I haven't to monitor it, and then it sounds fine. So you were all right to cry your eyeballs out. It's my fault. I was shit. I would never make a Radio 1 DJ because, of course, I'm not going to big up. Oh my God, talking of which, I just happened while I was making a brew to go into living room last night, and what we're on, Brit Awards. And who were just winning? Stormzy. Oh my God. And he's up there giving it that he's an emissary of Jesus. The guy is the dumbest ass I've ever seen in my life. And who did he big up? Because he has to do, because if it weren't for this other bunch, his retardation wouldn't get the light of day. Chase the status. The musos that give method for the retards to be able to talk shit to, and then the machine puts it up there and shoves it down all your offspring's necks. And he won. I can't believe it, but he's an emissary of Jesus. Jesus works through him, and he hasn't finished yet. So Jesus wants everybody to be thick as pig shit. Yeah? Right, so, these images are off. I didn't even notice. Now, there's Zelensky with the same group. They put him in power. That's who he works for. He's been bringing in the money, the weapons for them to launder. And at the end of even this week, BlackRock gets $500 billion deal to rebuild Ukraine. What a spontaneous and shocking coincidence. Yet, you're all focused to that charade. And if you fix the left and right, you're going, Trump's amazing, or Zelensky's a twat, blah, blah, blah. Now, Semitism. A Semitic character or quality is a characteristic feature of a Semitic language occurring in another language. First known use, 1851, in the meaning defined at sense 1a. Semitism is about language and nothing else. It's not about race. There you've got Putin. There you've got Trump. Now that rabbi with Putin is an American rabbi. And at the bottom, you've got Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, spiritual leader of the Chabad Lubavitch movement. Okay? He's dead now. But he's the guy that gave everybody $1 that came to him. There's your American rabbi. There's Putin. Okay? Putin, Trump, and removing Ukraine from any command of Europe. The breadbasket is gone. You don't think they're going to starve Europe? There's Trump. Now, interestingly, they never show Baron Trump to his son, the hidden one. No, everybody's focused to his daughter's fella, who's very bedded in with APAC and all that malarkey. Make no mistake about it. And they've got the small hats on, apart from this fella who's got a big hat on. And there's Trump just before this inauguration, this time, at the Rebbe's grave. The Rebbe's grave, ladies and gentlemen. That's who Mr. Trump, or Donaldo, the president, operates for. As does Zelensky. as does Putin. Okay? There is why you can see now that that was just theatre. Theatre to deflect, to focus everybody's attention to the left, to the right. Keep everybody hating Biden and loving Trump. Everybody hating Trump and loving Biden. And there's what's happened at the end of it this week. BlackRock gets $500 billion deal to rebuild Ukraine. Okay? That's what they're not telling you. Now, what else did I have? Right. Let's get into some more evidence to support what I've been telling you for all these years. Now, this is a map of 1499, it is said. Right? Now there you've got Europe to your left. All the different little nations and principalities. The Kingdom of England, the Kingdom of Scotland. And then you've got Hungary, you've got Poland, Grand Duchy of Lithuania with Poland. But then look what you've got. You've got the Crimean Khanate, the Great Horde, the Nogai Horde, Uzbeki Khanate, Khanate of Kazan. All these and the Grand Principality of Moscow. Okay? So this Tartarian garbage that they keep putting up, you're only a little tiny part of these great hordes. Don't be fooled by the Tartaria blag. Now remember, they want to move everything over here, further down to the right, down into Kazakhstan. Look at the size of the hordes in relation to Europe. Now can you better understand why the Venetians did a deal with them? Because they then became the power over Europe for these massive hordes. Now, we have a few of these to go through, but obviously I'm going to go through them singular because we get to stay on them a little bit longer. Where are we here? Oh, there we go. So that's... Here we go. There is another. Now here we can see a bit of a division going on with the Golden Horde, as it were. So this is now a new one that came about from 1379 to 1405, the Empire of Timur. Now, if I enhance this, so you've got the Khanate of the Golden Horde, which is Genghis, Chagatai Khanate, Sultanate of Delhi, okay, the Mamluk Sultanate, the Ottoman Empire, the Yelets. You've got all these surrounding nations to this Empire of Timur, okay, and this is after Genghis. Now, I'm just going to expand this so we can read this script here at the side. If I make it a bit bigger, then you could probably see it sells. So, right. The Ugyar bookshelf. It says Empire of Timur. Timurid Empire, 1370 to 1507. Okay? 1507. Bearing in mind this is just on the back of the fall of the Lombard Empire, giving the Venetians even more power, okay, in the banking. And this is after Edward I as well. This is after the breakup of the Templars, etc., etc. The Timurid Empire was a vast and powerful empire founded by Timur, or Tamerlane, in 1370. It stretched across Central Asia, Persia, the Caucasus, parts of India, and the Middle East, blending Persian, Turkic, and Mongol traditions. Okay? Persian, Turkic, and Mongol traditions. Now, last week we looked, didn't we, at the fact that who are these Arabs in truth? Okay? Now, one, the rise of Timur, or Tamerlane, 1336 to 1405, born in Transoxania, modern Uzbekistan, he was claimed descent from Genghis Khan's in-laws. So not directly tied to Genghis. Established his capital in Samarkand and began conquests across Eurasia. Now, in-laws, that means female. What passes through the female line? This Talmudic system, okay? Keep that in mind. Known for military genius, brutality, and using psychological warfare. Known for 2. Conquests and expansion. Defeated the Delhi Sultanate in 1398, destroying Delhi. Crushed the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I in 1402 at Ankara, delaying Ottoman expansion. Conquered Persia, Mesopotamia, and parts of the Caucasus. Weakened the Golden Horde, reshaping power in Central Asia. Central Asia. What did Abe Finkelstein tell you about who his race really are? Asiatic. Where are they putting the new system? Central Asia. Kazakhstan. Who are the enemies of China? The Mongols. Okay? Are you seeing now the picture that I've been presenting for these years? 3. Cultural and architectural legacy. Samarkand and Herat became centres of art, science and Persian Turkic culture. Built grand structures like the Ger Emir Mausoleum and Timur's tomb. Supported scholars like Ulu Beg, a great astronomer. Decline and fall. But before I do that, Persian Turkic culture. Who was the king of the Persians that, as referenced today, King Cyrus? Who did King Cyrus emancipate? The captive Judahites, not the Israelites, the captive Judahites, who then went on to build the second temple and went back to Babylon to get the priesthood to run it because they didn't know how to. So the second temple was entirely a Turkic Persian gig because this has been going on a fucking long time. Decline and fall. After Timur's death in 1405, his empire fragmented due to succession struggles. The Mughal Empire, founded by Babur, Timur's descendant, carried on Timurid traditions in India. The empire collapsed in 1507, with territories taken by the Safavids and Uzbeks. Legacy. Timur's empire left a lasting impact on art, architecture and military strategy in Central Asia, Iran and India. Despite its brutality, it shaped the Islamic and Persianate world, influencing the Mughals, Safavids and Ottomans. Okay? It shaped the Islamic and Persianate world. Okay? Important stuff. Right? So that's just another insight to the might of this Genghis clan gaining control over Europe by subversion through the deal they did with the Venetians, who were the first bankers in Europe, and of course, by their own actions, set up Byzantium Rome to be taken over by these Turkic Persians to become a caliphate. Okay? And they took on the symbolism of the Byzantine Christendom. Right, now let's have a look. Where are we? Oh, I've done that. Okay, so this is just a fuller version of that. And it says it's from Europe and the Middle East in 1444 AD. So this is at the time of that Timurid Empire. You can see it. So that's an image of what was going on back then. Uralic tribes, Novgorod Republic. Now, remember back in these times, the Varangian Guard and before were Scandinavians. And this Silk Road that were going down the back of all this suggests that those that we class as Vikings were actually operating for this great horde system rather than off their own bat. And they basically got stuck into Europe and Blighty, did they not? So, worth keeping in mind, because I know we all like the Vikings. Right, so right now, what's this? Oh no, that's not. No, that's not what we're looking for. Okay. Now then, I want to introduce you to a guy called Eduard Hodos. So this was a guy who was brought up and embedded in Chabad Lubavitch. He was as thick-in as any of the others you'd expect. And this is the man himself with the Rebbe, Schneerson, the guy who is like the spiritual leader to this dark system. Okay, so there you've got the Rebbe on the right, and Eduard Hodos left as a Jew in 1991 with Chabad guru Rabbi Schneerson. So that's 1991. Okay, so this guy knows what he's talking about. Okay, I think we have another picture of him with the Rebbe again in 1991. So there he is, as fixed in as you can get. Okay, so this guy knew the game. Now, then he had a change of heart. Okay, he left Chabad Lubavitch and he actually became a Russian Orthodox Christian. Now, this is what he had to say. The third Khazaria, the CIS 1991, and a question mark, so I don't know what that means. And that's Eduard Hodos. Okay, it says, in the first Khazaria, the native people in the Ukraine were taken over by Jews and converted to Judaism. But of course, remember, this is the Asiatic, not the followers of the 5 books of Moses, right? This is this bunch from over there, and converted to Judaism. From this beginning in the 7th to 10th centuries, a battle line had been drawn with Russia. Forts were located from 10 to 20 kilometres apart, creating what was in effect an unbroken line of military fortifications along the border of modern Ukraine and Russia. Now, back in the day, it was never termed Russia, it was Moscow, okay? And they were called Muscovites. But he's using the term Russia because obviously that's what people relate to. Voronezh, Stary Oskol, Belgorod, Kharkov, okay? Further from the southwest of Kharkov, Krasnograd, Dnepropetrovsk, Kryvoj Rog, to the northwest Kiev, Chernigov. So these are all the forts that he says were created to sort that out. Now he says, so from the beginning, the conquering Jews of present-day Ukraine were at war with their neighbours, the Russians. This article is from an interview with the Ukrainian general who bitterly describes how Ukraine was prepped for Chabad takeover. Now, of course, this bunch took over Russia in the Bolshevik Revolution, but what we need to keep in mind is the fact that the Bolshevik Revolution was ordained from the City of London and finance from Wall Street. Okay, so the Bolshevik Revolution, albeit the Bolshevik gig and all these people that we call Asiatic, the method and means of them getting to that was both the inner city of London, the Temple Crown, and the financial centre, which had then become Wall Street, or not financial centre, but sort of the high street for the inner city temple. Okay, so there's a guy who was sucking it, thicking it, saw the light, came out and started to talk about it. And so that's his take on what happened. Now, he goes on to say, Edward Hordos, The Jewish Syndrome, Kharkov, Ukraine, 1999-2002. And again, I'll say, we're not talking about the followers of the 5 books of Moses, the Tanakh, or the Torah, or the Old Testament. These are these other people that service the Talmud, the Midrash, the Zohar, and now claim that to be a part of the Torah. No, it isn't. Okay, that's what Jesus was saying. He called it the laws of man, and presented that as what the Second Temple was, which is why he said it would be destroyed. So you've got to equate Second Temple, King Cyrus, Babylon, Talmud, Midrash, Zohar. Yeah? A separate thing completely from the Judaism, you might say, that Jesus came from to speak against that and move his people, the Israelites, back into the fold and under the Father of the beginnings and outside the grip of the Elohim. In this sensational series of books entitled The Jewish Syndrome, author Edward Hordos, himself a Jew, is head of the Reformed Jewish community in Kharkov, Ukraine, documents a decade-long battle with the Judeo-Nazis, in the author's own words, of the fanatical Hasidic sect Chabad Lubavitch. Okay, so they're nothing to do with the Bible. You know what I'm saying? But these are the Christian Zionist leaders. This is what the War Cabinet in 1940 handed the New World Order to. But, in my opinion, it's not the overriding theology of the rulers of this game. This is just, it's just so low grade, it couldn't possibly. The leaders of this world couldn't possibly be at the level of believing this script. Okay? Which we'll further investigate in a moment. According to Hordos, not only has Chabad, whose members believe their recently deceased Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson is the Messiah, taken over Jewish life throughout the territory of the ex-USSR, it become the factual mastermind of the Putin and Kuchma regimes. Chabad also aims to gain control of the US by installing their man, Joseph Lieberman, in the White House. Hordos sees a Jewish hand in all the major catastrophic events of recent history, from the Chernobyl meltdown to the events of September the 11th, 2001, using excerpts from the protocols of the Elders of Zion to help explain and illustrate why. Hordos has also developed a theory of the third khazaria, according to which extremist Jewish elements like Chabad are attempting to turn Russia into something like the Great Khazar Empire, which existed in the Lower Volga from the 7th to the 10th centuries, which is what we've just looked at on those maps. Much of this may sound far-fetched, but as you read and the facts begin to accumulate, you begin to see that Hordos makes sense of what's happening in Russia and the world perhaps better than anyone writing today. So that's Edward Hordos. Now, let's have a look at what the Rebbe actually penned when he was alive, because then we get it straight from the horse's mouth, do we not? And there you can see he adorns the cube of Saturn. We've looked at the symbolism of that in previous live streams, have we not? So in a 1994 speech published in the Vologda newspaper of Vologda, Slavyanin, Chabad leader Messiah Menachem Mendel Schneerson outlined his plans for destroying both Ukraine and Russia. Chabad leader Messiah Menachem Mendel Schneerson, 1902-1994. He quote, "Slavs, and among them Russians, are the most unbending people in the world. Slavs are unbending as a result of their psychological and intellectual abilities, created by many generations of ancestors. It is impossible to alter these genes. Slav Russian can be destroyed, but never conquered. That is why this seed is subject to liquidation, and at first a sharp reduction in their numbers." Now remember, this is the grave that you see Trump praying at just before he got in this year. That's what the guy in that grave said. And if you think that's just applying to Russians and Slavs, think again. First of all, we will divide the Slavic nations to 300 million, half of them Russians, into the small countries with weak and severed connections. For this, we will use our old method, divide and conquer. We will try to pit these countries against each other and suck them into civil wars for the sake of mutual destruction. Now, he wrote this in 1994. What did Bill Clinton do? Did he not set these nations against each other? And what arm of the empire did they use to start that? The Muslims. Okay? That's how that started. The Ukrainians will think that they are fighting against the expansionist Russia and struggling for their independence. That's what's going on now. All the rhetoric is that you're fighting Russia. They will think that they have finally gained their freedom while they become fully subdued by us. So that was the time before. Come 2014, under Obama and Biden as the president, they'd achieved that, got the system in, and then started causing trouble to kick off this next one. So the Ukrainians will think that they're fighting against the expansionist Russia. Isn't that what all the propaganda today is having you believe? Of course it is. It's not. This is what's moving that expansion of Russia into the Ukraine to remove it as a breadbasket for Europe. And now they've got King Cyrus at the other side in America working together. The same will be thought by Russians, as though they defend their national interests to return their lands, illegally taken away from them, and so on. Now remember, he said this in 1994. We had the Yugoslav war, and now we've got Russia thinking they're just reclaiming, because he said it was a special operation to Putin. He's only going to reclaim the areas where the majority of people are Russians and that have been tortured by this bunch that Biden put in, who this lot say are Nazis. Don't they? They say that this bunch of Ukrainians is still very in tune with Adolf Hitler. That's what they say. So you can see that exactly what he said in 94. The Ukrainians will think that they're fighting against the expansionist Russia and struggling for their independence. They will think that they have finally gained their freedom while they become fully subdued by us. The same will be thought by Russians, as though they defend their national interest to return their lands, illegally taken away from them, and so on by Biden and Obama. Okay? So that's what he said. Now I think there's one more. Right. So this is a continuation of that. So it says left is 540,000 square foot. Dnepropetrovsk Jewish Community Centre is the world's largest JCC. Dnepropetrovsk is 250 miles southeast of Kiev. Okay, that's a big building. Looking back in history, it must be admitted that these lands are the ancient ancestral lands of the Jewish Khazaria. That is Israel. Interesting. Say that again. Looking back in history, it must be admitted that these lands are the ancient ancestral lands of the Jewish Khazaria. That is Israel. Which is telling you that those that are running Israel in the Middle East is actually this group of people. And that the Middle East is set up in Israel just to keep the biblical tradition, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, at war with each other. Yeah? Captured by Kiev Rus, the ancient state of Russia, with the capital in Kiev in the 10th century. The Slavs are temporary guests on these lands and are subject to eviction. We will return this territory and build the great Khazaria, the Jewish state on these fertile lands, the same way as 50 years ago we created Israel, squeezing the Palestinians out. Okay? Now, I didn't continue it because that pretty much gives you the gig as far as who this Schneerson guy is that they're all following because they're tied into this Abad Lubavitch, yeah? Right, so that's the Rebbe. What else do we have here? Let's have a look. Well, that's it. But then, now I just want to put this across to you because this is interesting because before 1940, remember that pivotal year when the War Cabinet handed over the New World Order to these peoples, the Bolsheviks, 1940. Remember. So this is what Disney... So the Three Little Pigs, right, that we're all brought up on, we're all well aware of. Before 1940, this is what it meant. This is what the wolf were, which, keep in mind the Fabian society, wolf in sheep's clothing, pure Bolshevik gig. This is how Three Little Pigs was depicted before 1940. Okay? To the left. That was the big bad wolf. Let me just... So in 1932, the nursery rhyme that we were all brought up on, when Disney projected that as a cartoon, there was the big bad wolf. Little pig, let me come in and I'll blow your house down. Now in 1948, after 1940, the big bad wolf became a wolf. Can you see how we've been completely and utterly given a false script? And as again I'll say, we're not talking about Jews of the Tanakh, or we're talking about these Talmudists, Midrash Zoharians under King Cyrus, Persian, Turkic, Mongol, Asiatics. It's what we're talking about, totally different game. The yellow race that Mother Shipton made clear is going to try and divide the world into two halves. Yep. So, this isn't just pie in the sky stuff. Now, when you get onto let's have a look here. We're going to now go into we're going to go into browser now because then we're going to look. This is what February the 14th, 2025. Sanhedrin letter to Trump. You have been elected to fulfill a heavenly mission. Let me just make that a little bit bigger. Alright, remember Sanhedrin. That's what runs the Talmudic Judaism as a take on what ran originally biblical Judaism. So he's been reminded, you have been elected to fulfill a heavenly mission. What is that mission? Okay, my stomach's going mad. There you've got the guy to the left with the cube of Saturn. You've got another guy to the right and another guy at the back. Cubes of Saturn, Rebbe. Alright? And that's elders of the Sanhedrin open a historical trial against Pope Francis and US President Barack Obama on Mount Zion. So even though they control Francis, and even though they controlled Obama, they're now having an historical trial, hoping that all those against the left will start to look at these people and think, we need you. We need you as judge and jury. Why would that be an issue? Well, Noahide, isn't it? Noahide, remember? Run by the Sanhedrin. Okay? He says, the Nasser Sanhedrin published an open letter to President Donald Trump blessing him for putting faith at the forefront by establishing a White House faith office. Now, you think that means faith in Christian Jesus, though the Zionists do. No, it doesn't. Faith in this. The Sanhedrin called on the president to establish an international divine court for all nations. Now, of course, that's to replace the current International Criminal Court, the ICC. Okay? Dear Honourable President Donald Trump, may Hashem, God literally means the name, the Creator bless you and your nation. We extend our heartfelt gratitude for bringing faith to the forefront of American and global culture by establishing the Faith Office in the White House. This refers to the President announcing last week at the National Prayer Breakfast that he will create a White House Faith Office headed by Pastor Paula White. White is an outspoken supporter of Israel, who has been at the forefront of advocating for the Jewish state since October the 7th. Okay? Earlier last week, White met for 4 hours with Prime Minister Milikowski. The Sanhedrin's letter continued. Your recognition of the importance of religion in public life is a step toward restoring moral values and spiritual leadership in the world. The Sanhedrin then listed the Universal Moral Code. The book of Genesis is a profound message of unity and divine purpose for humanity through 3 fundamental principles. 1 God to recognise the cause of all causes. 1 first man to affirm the basic equal rights of humanity. Well, man does not affirm the right of humanity. Humanity, as we've looked at, is a concept, and a very recent concept, I can't remember exactly when, of the Vatican II Catechism. I can't say that word for some reason. So there's a lie for a start. 1 first man to affirm basic equal rights of humanity. Humans and man isn't the same. So there's your first deception. 1 basic law to establish universal principles of justice, Genesis 2:16. Well, we've had that for 2,000 years. Well, more, 5,000 years. And all of a sudden, it's not good enough. They want a new one. But you've to keep thinking that they're actually representing the Bible. Well, the Bible had 10 laws. They want to stick it to 7. No power removes its laws from its own grip. Let's get that into perspective also. Without a constructive moral framework, humanity descends into violence and destruction as exemplified by Cain's murder of Abel. Every nation has unique strengths and resources, yet no nation is self-sufficient without a universal ethical common code. People resort to war and oppression to obtain what they need. With such a code, nations engage in spiritual commerce and a race for virtue. Well, who does that? Who controls commerce? The first commandment and the 7 laws of Noah. The first time the word commandment appears in the Bible is when Hashem commanded Adam, and the Lord God commanded the man, saying, "Of every tree of the garden you may freely eat." This verse alludes to the 7 universal laws that form the foundation of ethical behaviour for all humanity. These laws reflect the 7 of the 10 commandments. These ethical principles were reaffirmed at Mount Sinai when Hashem revealed himself to the world and our ancestors witnessed this divine event. The Jewish, Christian, Muslim and all monotheistic traditions recognise the divine revelation at Mount Sinai as a foundational moment in history. Now, it says here the Jewish, Christian, Muslim and all monotheistic, yet, as you'll see in a bit, they don't claim Christianity to be monotheistic, they say it's idolatry. So again, a deception from this Sanhedrin letter to the leader of the free world. So there is deception in this letter just by referencing the very book it is referencing. So that's not me saying it. The deception is there to be seen. When Hashem gave the children of Israel the Torah, he provided an ethical standard for the entire world. This standard is known as the 7 commandments of Noah. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's 10 commandments, and the Torah is the 5 books of Moses. That's what it is. Again, another deception. Not because I'm saying so, because we're referencing the very book they're referencing, and they're telling fibs. When a person accepts the 7 Noahide laws, they receive divine blessings. Did you get that? When a person accepts the 7 Noahide laws. Because the Noahide laws are not for Jews, they're just for non-Jews. And they're playing a trick on Islam at this stage yet. Assuring the world to come, those who follow these principles merit a place in the hereafter. So the Jehovah's Witnesses are shouting themselves and believing that they're sucking the shit out of a lie. Enclosed with this letter, we have included the Universal Ethical Common Code, UECC, which outlines the benefits of adopting the 7 commandments of Noah. Okay, role of ethics in business, the Cyrus Trump coin and your historic role. In 2017, the nascent Sanhedrin minted a special coin featuring your image on one side and Cyrus the Great on the other. This symbolised your historic role, likened to that of Cyrus, who was chosen by Hashem to fulfill a divine mission. Yeah, a Babylonian mission. The Chinese appreciated this idea so much that they reproduced a solid millions of copies of these coins and other products featuring your image alongside Cyrus the Great. So the Chinese sold millions of these. And we said last week, the Bolshevik elites run China. The original Chinese rulers are in Taiwan. You've been elected as Cyrus was in his time to fulfill a heavenly mission. To unite all believers in God and foster ethical cooperation across all spheres of humanity, of human activity. A call to establish an international divine court, IDC. They want to replace it. So when Trump's removing from the WHO and the United Nations, and we can all see why, it's only because they intend this guy to set up this new one, global law legal system, which is the 7th law. All right, we don't need to go any further into that. You get the picture. I'll put these up, of course. So, who is Nikki Haley, Sanhedrin invites honorary president of Organisation of 70 Nations. Okay. Oh, I've got a headache. Okay, now. During their session, during this recent Hanukkah holiday, the Sanhedrin decided to invite Nikki Haley, the former US ambassador to the United Nations, to be the honorary president of the Organisation of 70 Nations. So this is what they want to replace the United Nations. Okay? God established the borders of the world based on the 70 children of Israel who went down to Egypt in the 70 nations that came out from Noah. The concept of 70 nations is from the Bible and symbolises the base of the organisation while not being intended to imply or limit a limit of requirement of participation. But of course the Noahides were never a part of the Israelites. They hated them, they despised each other and fought 4 major wars. This is the Noahides coming back and taking over everything. The concept of 70 nations also appears in reference to the 70 oxen offered at the temple throughout Sukkot, the Feast of the Tabernacles, which the Talmud, Sukkah 55b, teaches are for the merit of the 70 nations. See, they're citing Talmud now. This is where it comes from, not the Bible. The decision by President Donald Trump, as enacted by emissary Nikki Haley, regarding the United Nations, by which he removed his country's support, were fitting and proper responses to actions of the UN. The UN's controlled by the Rothschilds. It was set up by the Rothschilds. Rabbi Hillel Weiss, spokesman for the Sanhedrin, explained the decision to choose Nikki Haley to head the organisation. Nikki Haley displayed a strength of character that showed a deeply sincere and unwavering willingness to fight for truth. Rabbi Weiss told Breaking Israel News she was a faithful representative of the president, but her character gave her a strength that went far beyond the requirements of her job. So there you go. They're now moving through Trump to get rid of the United Nations, the ICC, and put this new world order system in that will be run by these people who are operating in accordance with what Rabbi Schneerson wrote in 1994. Are you digging the scene? Now, let's have a listen.
The Semitic attack is an assault on all of us. It's an assault on humanity. It will require all of us working together to extract the hateful poison of anti-Semitism from our world. This was an anti-Semitic attack at its worst. The scourge of anti-Semitism cannot be ignored, cannot be tolerated, and it cannot be allowed to continue. We can't allow it to continue. It must be confronted and condemned everywhere it rears its very ugly head. We must stand with our Jewish brothers and sisters to defeat anti-Semitism and vanquish the forces of hate. That's what it is. Through the centuries, the Jews have endured terrible persecution, and you know that. We've all read it, we've studied it, they've gone through a lot. And those seeking their destruction, we will seek their destruction. Now, when you have crimes like this, whether it's this one or another one or another group, we have to bring back the death penalty. They have to pay the ultimate price. They have to pay the ultimate price. They can't do this. They can't do this to our country. We must draw a line in the sand and say very strongly, never again.
Here's a bit CGI looking background, you're quite right there. However, death penalty, remember? Decapitation, we looked at it last week because we were trying to work out whether it's real or whether it's just on title, but it is. So there's Trump announcing withdrawal from the UN, human rights body, and a halt to funding for Palestinian refugees. So that's the reason why he's done it. It's to halt funding for Palestine. Which is pretty sick in and of itself, to be honest. United Nations President Donald Trump announced Tuesday that the United States will withdraw from the top UN human rights body and will not resume funding for the UN agency helping Palestinian refugees. Okay, so you can see it, and Trump's announcement came on the day he met with visiting Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. You can see it; it's there. Now we're getting to the end. Now I cannot, for a second, believe that this is the mindset of the people at the top of the tree. Because not only is it infantile, the hubris of it is so ridiculous that if it is the case that the rulers of the world hold this in their hearts, then we really can start to understand who this antagonist is. And that it's not even a game, it's real. Now listen to this. Now this is the conversation, this is the piece. I want you to sit back and just listen to what he's saying, because this is what he means. And again, this is Chabad Lubavitch. Yeah? Listen to what he says. Because if Trump gets this together, and Islam, remember, while it's under the control of this group, is its broom. So they're going to be the trouble causers. You know, I'm talking about the uneducated ones, the ones that don't know any different. So just listen to this. I hope.
6 billion idol worshippers who makes God angry every second of their life. Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Tibet, Nepal, Thailand, so many. India alone is 500 million. China is 2 billion. So many, 2 billion Christians, which are idol worshippers. Between Chinese, Hindus, Buddhists, and Christian, at least 6.5 billion people are idol worshippers that, according to the Torah, do not have the right to live. Idol worshipper goy, it's death penalty. Not only Jews, even a goy who bow down to an idol, who believe in JC, deserve death penalty. 6 billion idol worshippers.
Did you get that? And I can't accept that that is the thesis of the people that run this world. It's not, which suggests to me that these people are just a front for these families in the background, and that this whole game is just to tear the living daylights out of not only the biblical tradition, but Hinduism, Tibetism, Chinese culture, Japanese culture, ad infinitum. You heard that, didn't you? You can't, and that's a Schneerson boy, a Rebbe boy, same. But you're not going to get your politicians talking that, are you, live on television? Now, this is the final. Okay, so this is the Mishnah, Torah Kings and Wars, and this is Sefaria. And it says, how must the Noahides, which is the non-Jews, fulfill the commandments to establish laws and courts? They are obliged to set up judges and magistrates in every city to render judgment concerning these 6 mitzvot, and to admonish the people regarding their observance. A Noahide who transgresses these 7 commands shall be executed by decapitation. Okay? Shall be executed by decapitation. Executed. For this reason, all the inhabitants of the Shechem were obligated to die. Shechem kidnapped. They observed and were aware of his deeds, but did not judge him. A Noahide is executed on the basis of his testimony. Listen, get now. This is where it gets. If you're going to put the might of all legal power into this new system, this is what's important. A Noahide, that means everybody that's non-Jewish, is executed on the basis of the testimony of one witness and the verdict of a single judge. So it only takes one person to come up and say, he did this. One of these judges, yeah, I agree. Can you see the danger? No warning is required. Relatives may serve as witnesses. However, a woman may not serve as a witness or a judge for them. So all you women that are seeking power, think you've got it going. It's not going to work in this new system. A Noahide who inadvertently violates one of his commandments is exempt from all punishment, with the exception of a person who kills inadvertently. In such an instance, the Redeemer of the blood is not executed for slaying the killer, nor may the latter seek asylum in a city of refuge. However, the court will not execute him. When does the above apply? When an inadvertently violates a command without sinful intention. For example, a person who engages in relations with his colleague's wife under the impression that she is his own wife or unmarried. Oh, we don't have to get into that on it because it just goes on and on. But obviously I'll put these links underneath. But I just want to also remind you that there is your position of an Noahide judge in Freemasonry. Scottish Rite, remember. And this is why it's so embedded everywhere. And you know, your average Freemason has no idea that this is what's going on. No idea at all. Because they're not the brightest on the tree, they're just happy to go along to get along. But and this is History of Freemasonry, Albert Gallatin Mackey, a Prussian Knight, 21st degree, who makes it clear in there that there's no mention of Noah in the original Freemasonic scripts, none whatsoever. It's a lie, it's an invention, and that Anderton and others created it. They created it in its entirety as a fantasy. Okay, so that's History of Freemasonry, Albert Gallatin Mackay. There's your Masonic link, and that's why it's so embedded. You've got there, the City of London is moving to Kazakhstan, which is not only the City of London, it's the New World Order religion. So, to the world, Rome will fall, but really the same system has already been set up there. They're already having the meetings there. That's a good read if you've not read it. And of course, you've got Sabbatai Zevi and the Sabbatine Frankish chronology from 1492 to Israel, which we can say is the thesis of Rebbe Schneerson. And we've looked at that many times. I will put that up again. It's a good chronology from 1492, when they were so-called kicked out of Spain, to the formation of Israel. A damning indictment indeed, and it's not because I say so. And then, of course, you've got the Three World War strategy given by Albert Pike, Grand Pontiff of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Okay, again, you weren't right, you had to be Christian. Of course, I don't believe it's that way now, but that's how it actually began. And then, of course, Elizabeth told you the crack. She's not giving you justice, and she's not giving you law. She's giving you her heart. And that, ladies and gentlemen, pretty much completes yet another raft of data that just helps you to see that, you know, what we've discussed and investigated for quite a few years on this channel isn't pie in the sky. I mean, a lot of that stuff that we've looked at tonight, especially the Noahide side, I looked at this many years ago, as Adam Green brought it out, and two Jewish people who were actually now Christians from America, I can't remember the name of fans, Stephen Ben Nun, I think his name. They were the people that brought this Noahide dilemma to the public arena. And I was lucky enough to see it, but more importantly, I could comprehend it. And I could see the dangers, hidden as they are. And the dangers, as that guy just told you, is not just to Christians, Tibetans, Chinese, Buddhists, everybody. With the exception, according to that particular rabbi, of Islam, because of course Islam has a role to play, but will be mopped up by China, who have deemed it a mental illness. Which, if Islam is about to be used for what it is this group want it to be used for, nobody on this earth would disagree with that premise. Make no mistake about it. I've read the Quran more than once. I've read the Hadith. I understand what it's saying, and I know what it is. And I also know that most Muslims out there haven't read it ever. Completely dependent on these imams who are operating for this group, just like the cardinals and such. The Vatican are operating for this group, and just like the rabbis are operating for this group. And that is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. So what began as just a diversion and deflection, which has caught people's attention with that little game in the White House, this is what's really going on. This is the real power move. That's just the shit show. That's just the shit show for the people that want to be entertained. The mob, as Rome called it. The profane, as the secret societies would call it. The goy, as the rabbis would call you. And let's be frank, when you look at those people that are sucking into that left part paradigm and playing into that theatre that was just given to us this week, are they wrong? Are they wrong? What did Kissinger call them? Useless eaters. Now I say that because we have to distinguish ourselves from that. We're not saying we're better, but we have done the work, we have done the study, because we wanted to know. And because we've done that, we have the points of reference to know that that is a shit show, it is entertainment, and it's for those that wish to be entertained. We have the points of reference to show us that that is exactly what that is. And we are not entertained by it. We're not falling for it. And you have to recognise that you are not any longer a part of that mix. You're not being up your own ass. You're not being aloof. You've recognised something. Like you've recognised when you're a kid, don't stick your finger in the gas fire, it's going to burn. But there's always going to be kids sticking their fingers in the gas fire until they learn. You've learned that. You're no longer subject to that, if you get what I'm saying. And that's how you have to look at it. Because we're at a point now where if you let people that are still stuck there because of their idleness and they're refusing to face the reality, do not let them people drag you down back to where you used to be. It's essential for your own salvation, if you may want to call it that way. It's essential that you now have to start to see the world a little bit different. And that it's sad, but the majority of people are bedazzled by the script because they don't know any different. But more importantly, they don't want to see any different. You can't take responsibility for that. Because if you're going to remain fixed to that. You know, have compassion for these people. Be there for them if you need it, but do not let them interfere with the path you're on and the awakening you're having in relation to seeing through the great game. So we'll have a little look at who's in and then we'll give it a dig because again we're past 2 hours, which is naughty. So we got to that. So okay, no. Add Australia to that list. Stream, yes, says new. Oh, yep. Screen is good. Yeah. Bar and banking held. I agree. Sean says train. Zelensky is actually wearing a shirt. Yeah, they attacked him for that as well when he made it clear in his speech. Look, I'm not defending. Do not for a second think I'm defending either or. They're all actors. They're all playing a script. It just looked like part of that particular script where Zelensky shoved in at the deep end with that, and it probably went off the script in relation to what he'd been told it was going to be. But if you've followed the game, you've heard the speeches, etc., etc., the only two in that gig, just that particular theatre, that looked stupid was Trump, but especially Vance. Because he didn't have the right comebacks either. You know, he's bringing up free speech and then attacking Zelensky for having free speech to tell him that, hang on a minute, I've been ready for peace 3 times, pal. First time it was signed off, Putin broke it. 2 other times I were in for it, you guys broke it. So, you know, and you can see it, that would have been, oh, you're not getting any more cash, you're not getting any more weapons if you sign this peace treaty. You know, if you sign this peace treaty, we're off. So, and then Vance admonished him for that after just been bigging up free speech. You can see it, can't you? You can see. Trump looks strange in that photo. Well, yeah. Yeah, people out there are still falling for the paradigm, left v right. Yeah, red versus blue, Israel v Palestine, Russia v EU. Yeah, it is all orchestrated, and it always has been. It's not a new thing. Ellie in the Sky says LFX, new Laredo tribal mentality, like rock and roll wrestling. How many trillion did they make destroying it? I don't know, and that money laundering. I mean, the weapons, the money laundering, it's just, and then what they left in Afghanistan as well. They've armed fanatical Islam with all that. That's what they've done. You can guarantee the majority of black ops off the money they've sent to Ukraine will have gone into the Islamic fanatics. I don't know. Where are we there? Jobs for the lads, yeah. Sean, they're all the big operators using blackmail. Yeah. Jobs for the lads. I mean, they're talking about they've released Epstein. It's no different. And you've got Elon Musk bigging it up. Yeah, Elon Musk is promoting himself with DiCaprio. Well, if you've been following the Diddy stuff, DiCaprio were his favourite party goer because he got involved in it all. So you can see there's as part of the script, as a spiritual gig, they have to show you who they are. But if you focus to the left, right, and you swoon in, you're on emotion, you're not seeing it, are you? You're not seeing it, as it were. Jobs for lads, that's Russian rabbi with Putin. The first one isn't. The first one is an American rabbi. Lazar. I think that might be the second one where it's just Putin. But the double one where you've got Putin and Rabbi and Trump, he's an American. So just double check that, Gary. But I'll double check it as well, actually. So Dawn Browning says, why is he telling everyone? Well, that speech from Rebbe was actually just for his group, you know. If that's what you're referring to, Dawn. Oddly, I watched the original 1956 movie 1984 last night. A Tale as Old as Time. Yeah. Three little pigs saying the quiet part out loud, yeah. A picture paints 1,000 words. Trump visiting Lubovich's graves to see he's carrying out the plans, of course. Little Red Riding Hood. Grandma with big ears, you have. Yeah. Taking grandma's inheritance. Does Trump have another choice? Well, they don't. No, they're picked. They're unpicked. And if they're not going to play the game, they're not going to get in. Sheldon Adelson was his biggest supporter, and he died, but his wife's carried it on. Because you've got to see these people as frontmen. So the portfolio that they have isn't their portfolio, it's a portfolio belonging to the bankers, and they put a front man in there. Bill Gates, Soros. Then none of them are their own men. Zuckerberg, Musk. No, they're not. I call them the billionaire apostles, because now they're all rallying to King Cyrus. You know? Time will tell, but I doubt very much that Trump is going to be a saviour. Well, I think they're going to keep him going as though he's a saviour, and then they'll knock him off. And then they're hoping to get the civil war going in America, because if the Americans don't break off the left-right paradigm, like loving Trump, hating the left, and the left hating Trump and loving the left, then when he gets knocked off, isn't that the perfect fire starter for guns coming out, you know? Because they can't destroy America in the normal way because everybody's armed. But if they can get Americans to destroy themselves, like the English have destroyed themselves, like the Scots were destroyed many years ago through the Bruce and David the First, and then us through the Civil War and Cromwell, you know, and then going to war, all these wars that we've gone, you know, it's like a karmic thing, isn't it, really? You've got to look at it like that. Michael E. Jones had it right. He once said that as you ebb away at the moral structure of your society, your nation, as a people, you let it in. It starts to get in. You're letting it in, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And he's right, because in my understanding of the spiritual way is that a nation's formed with the egregore for the spirit of and an agreement's created between the angels, you might call them, and the leaders of your nation. A system is set up like the United States Constitution, and if you hold to that, if the rulers are holding to that and the people are being held to that, the spiritual egregore can protect you in the unseen realm. But as soon as that starts to diminish in the physical, you're lessening the power the spiritual realm has to actually protect the body or agreement, the covenant that you've got. And so that's why there's very different nations, and they're protected because they've all agreed to be a particular thing. And that game is in the hands of the creator, isn't it? He's deciding who's born where. If you're born in Pakistan, the creator's put you there. And he didn't want you to be moving around over there, unless you were moving over there because you were worthy of moving over there, and you weren't trying to bring that crap to that one. You were moving over there because you understood that system, and that's how you wanted to abide by. You'd grown, as it were. But them are just, I don't know, my musings as I've understood this stuff, you know. We're over there. The contract. Does Trump have a choice? Trump's beholden to them. It'd be lovely if he turned traitor. It would, but I doubt it. He'd get shot. That's what they did with the killing of the king with JFK. As a ritual as it might be, and faked. The essence of it was a trauma ritual. Everybody put their hopes in him, they knocked it off. Everybody went into serious trauma. 9/11, a serious trauma. You know, this is how they do it. It's a giant ritual, a trauma ritual. Circumcision is a trauma ritual for children. Because every time your energy moves on sexual excitement, your subconscious moves back to the trauma that's connected to that member. These guys have been doing this for such a long time, they know exactly how to play the game. Which is why the game is that you have to heal yourself. Because if you don't, you can't, you're gonna just become another member of the Fruit Bat Club, you know? Just keep fit, be ready for these fools. Just don't be trapped by it. There's an interesting presidential winner press conference, not sure if first or second time Donald and Barron don't appear to be very happy, as we would expect after winning an election. Well, they're just puppets, yeah, so good point there, Nouveau, yeah. Sean, you're a fountain of knowledge, thanks Lorraine. John Smith says, Elon Musk said, our new God will come from ancient Egypt. Well, look at this Doge that they're bigging up everywhere. Well, if you reverse it, it's E-God, isn't it? AI. Yeah? e-commerce, e-this, e-God. It's AI. Which is where Sabrina comes in with her stuff. I mean, obviously, at the moment, we're dealing with this cultural race religion that they're kicking off for unrest. But after that, Sabrina's showing you what's ready for you. Drone war. It's Terminator to a T, to be honest, you know what I'm saying? And the woman that wrote the Terminator and the Matrix films said that Neo was the John Connor's kid, I think, or something like that. And so they were a continuum, in essence. Where are we there? Monkey see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. That is exactly the way that they operate and polite society, so that you're not talking about it. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. And this is why people like me have had such an hard time, because people at an higher level are taught, shut up, don't see it, don't speak it. That's not polite society. We don't have them conversations. And another binder is, we never speak about politics or religion. Well, you're never going to fucking get anywhere, are you? You're going to talk about telly, Hilda Ogden and whatever else. You're right there, exactly. Hear no, speak, see no, speak no. That is perfected. It's an understatement, Sean. He's very gifted and talented. If only we had teachers like Sean we have at school. Thank you, sir. We have him now. You certainly do. And it hasn't been easy to get here, let me tell you. Because definitely I came out of the darkness to the light, and that's why I know so much, I think. But I won't recommend it for anybody, I'll tell you. What a nightmare. What a nightmare that's been. But anyway, perfect for it. I mean, fucking... Well, I'm not Rambo anymore, am I? Where's it called? Boy Legacy, that's it. I'm perfect for it. Perfect. You have Sean's bank details. Never heard of Streamlab. That tree's just mentioned. No, you better have... have you got a mute? Can you put him up, lad? Because Treen had a bit of trouble with PayPal last week, so probably better going straight in. So I think Mew has him. If Mew's still around... Oh, he's gone. Okay, good night, one and all. Sean, put your banking information in the notes of this post. I will. I'll put them under notes then, if that's all right, Lorraine. I'll do that after this. I'll just stick them in for you, and you can take them, and thank you very much. Because I would like to expand this game a bit now, you know what I mean? To be honest. Mew says, good night, one and all. Sean, put your banking information. Yeah, well... Night Mew isn't part of Kazakhstan, not visible on Google Earth. I don't know, Dawn. I don't know. It's on par with the city. Somebody informed us last week, so it's on the same parallel. Nighty night, Jeff. I got Sean's sort code and bank details. Much quicker to do it that way. Night Sean, night all night. Train. Funny the reporter that asked. That is the partner of a... Yeah, exactly. About the shirt. Yeah, the suit. Yeah. Nighty night, Jeffrey Sachs, Ulick says, the Portsman gave a good speech to the EU, Sean. Did he really? Well, I need to maybe look at that. Yeah, I mean, Rome has been taken over by this, completely. But the fact that we're all on a reform, it's easy to just despise Rome because of that. Whereas, in my experience, and I'm not just saying that because I was Christian or Catholic, but I've experienced what I class as high spirituality, energy around the Catholic people. Not necessarily the institution, but the people that left it. They are definitely holding on to the old morality, and I think they get a bad press, to be honest. But unfortunately, that's the war we've been in for a long time. But I've also met some very lovely and wise Protestants as well. I mean, I've grown up with them, for God's sake, you know. So, even church on chat is trouble, blah, 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 blah. Our reputation grows. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will say, thanks for joining, thanks for taking part. Mods, thanks for modding. And we might give this subject matter a bit of a rest. We don't want to become embedded with it too much, but It does need to be known and it does need to be comprehended. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I say thanks very much. Wait a minute. Till the next time.
electronic